Fellas, your man is disappointed. I'm just gonna get straight to the point on this one. Unexpected Resurgence is a bad weapon. It is one of the worst legendary glaives in the game, and it is easily the worst Trials reward Bungie has ever released in Destiny 2. It's worse than Whistler's bow, and that bow, to me, has literally the worst audio feedback in the entire game. But I would rather use Whistler's Whim over Unexpected Resurgence, which blows my mind because glaives originally, lore-wise, are very special weapons. But for some reason, Bungie keeps giving us more and more glaives, but then simultaneously nerfing some of our best glaive builds. And even when we get exotics like Trident that could potentially bring glaives into the fold, not even that exotic can save glaives. Now with that being said though, we are still going to review this weapon as it is the only new Trials weapon this season, as the only other weapon we're getting is the Messenger, which I'm excited for, but keep in mind that is an old Trials weapon essentially just being brought back with new perks. Unexpected Resurgence was the new weapon, and even though not every season is supposed to bring about something as meta as Immortal, we definitely want to have something usable either in PvP or in PvE. Now looking at this glaive and its perks, on the left side column, you really don't have a lot here to choose from. Honestly, Impulse Amplifier is your best bet. Everything else is just kind of meh. Now this does increase projectile velocity, but most notably increases that reload speed. And there's one thing everyone complains about with glaives is their terrible reload speed. Now for my PvP players trying to make shot swap work, I guess you could use that, but keep in mind, you're still using a glaive inside of PvP at the end of the day. Now moving over to the right side column, we actually have some pretty interesting options. The first one being Voltshot. That was actually the one I really wanted to see. That is something very unique. Matter of fact, we don't have Voltshot on any other glaive, which does make Unexpected Resurgence here kind of unique. And even though I love Voltshot, arguably one of my favorite perks in the game, as after getting a kill, reloading with the weapon will overcharge the weapon, causing targets to jolt on its next hit. It's a great perk, but for a glaive, guys, it's a tough one. Now there are other special weapons that have Voltshot: Prodigal Return, Gnora's Axe, Path of Least Resistance. But the thing about those weapons is you're not faced with this reload speed. And yes, you have to reload. Subsistence does not automatically proc Voltshot, unfortunately. Neither does Replenishing Aegis, which states that blocking damage partially reloads the weapon from reserves. No, you physically have to reload the weapon in order to proc Voltshot. On top of that, the damage is not amplified just because it's a special weapon. As in, if we compared the jolt damage from Unexpected Resurgence to our primary weapon here, Brigands, you'll notice that the jolt damage is the same. So it's not like the damage there with jolt scales depending on the archetype or weapon type, at least when comparing these two weapons, which just means that primary weapons in general have a better time at proccing Voltshot. And quite honestly, guys, Voltshot is just not the play on this glaive, despite it being unique. Now, if Bungie ever makes a change in the future to where Voltshot could apply via the melee, now that's a different story. Keep in mind though, Voltshot only applies to the projectile itself. It would be amazing though if I got a kill with the weapon, reloaded, and then somehow this applied to the melee portion of my glaive, and I can apply it with my next melee hit. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that's meta defining, but you can definitely make that work, especially given something like this season where we have Unstoppable Glaive as one of our artifact mods. Now, this brings us to some of our other perks. You've got things like Swashbuckler, which you can actually proc ×5 on when getting a melee kill. Sounds good? Here's the problem. That 33% damage buff from ×5 only applies to the projectile damage. That's right, guys. It doesn't even apply to the melee. Now, keep in mind, this is not a fault of Unexpected Resurgence. This is just how Bungie handles glaives, and this applies to all glaives. You'll notice the theme here where there are a lot of perks that just don't synergize with the melee itself. Swashbuckler, Rampage, Voltshot, you see the trend here. Now the weapon also has Unstoppable Force, where blocking damage with your shield increases projectile damage for a short time. Now, not enough to actually get the one-hit kill, but this is a 20% increase in damage. Now, if you're looking to actually secure a one-hit kill, on this weapon you have Surrounded. Now, Surrounded actually gives you a 40% damage bonus, and you can stack things like Radiance with Surrounded. And this can one-shot all resilience levels inside of PvP, but again, you have to proc Surrounded. Now, unfortunately, Surrounded does not actually increase the melee damage. Again, just like all these other perks, it only increases the projectile damage. This is such a big bummer to me because Bungie literally gave a bunch of perks that are really only applicable to actual guns. And then when we got here to glaives, they were just like, yo, how about we just not have anything synergized? Now keep in mind, to proc something like Radiant plus Surrounded inside of PvP, if you're looking to get the one-hit kill with this glaive, is a lot of hoops to jump through. And then you have options like Lubrae's Ruin and Judgment of Kel'Garath, which are both craftable, and they also happen to both be solar weapons. Therefore, proccing something like Radiant just happens to synergize much better here, considering you can just rock these solar fragments, Ember of Empyrean, allowing your solar weapons to refresh that Radiant buff, keeping it for even longer. But the common theme here, guys, with Unexpected Resurgence is that all these perks only grant damage bonuses for the projectile. Your melee damage remains the same, with even the likes of Voltshot only applying via the projectile and not on melee hits. Which I know some of you are like, Cross, that makes sense. Okay, I know, but this is space magic, and I thought, considering all the glaives Bungie has been giving us left and right, that surely there would be something special about this one with Voltshot, but not the case. Considering how many glaives we get left and right and how bad they all seem to be, I'm starting to look at glaives almost like ghost shells. It's like, yeah, there's another one. This glaive is really not meant for PvP. And until Bungie makes a change to glaives in general, glaives are not meant for PvP. And only for a short time were they really meta inside of PvE. Now, it was a beautiful meta. I had a good time poking everything with my glaives. Unexpected Resurgence, even in that meta though, probably would not have been good. Like, there's literally no reason why I would use it over the other glaives we have received in the past. And considering that Trials is the pinnacle PvP playlist, you would think we would get something juicier. And believe me guys, I know we just came off of getting Immortal last season, but in my opinion, when you make a weapon, you have to make it shine somewhere, PvP or PvE. And before somebody says, but Cross, it's an arc glaive, that's why it's special. Dude, we literally have Nezarec's Whisper. That weapon happens to be both arc and craftable. The more and more I look at this glaive though, guys, the more I think that you really just need to choose it for the potential glaive rework that is coming to us at some point in the future. We know Bungie is making this rework. How that's going to change glaives, I don't know. But they claim glaives are going to be meta. But there is no promise that Unexpected Resurgence will be meta. If I had to lock in a role for this glaive, and let me just say, one way Bungie could have really made Unexpected Resurgence different is by first making it an aggressive glaive. Like, that right there would have set it apart from others. Like, okay, not only do we have an arc glaive, but it's an aggressive glaive. That's interesting. Unfortunately, that is not the case. And overall, guys, even though there are people on LightGG that are giving it a 5 out of 5 stars in PvE, they're saying things like Vorpal's really good on it. You can get close to melee. Yeah, you can get those things for sure. But I would rather just get that on another glaive. On top of that, its origin trait Alacrity is not really mind-blowing to me inside of PvE, considering I'm normally running with other people. That perk is good for solo play. And yes, it does help this glaive for that gain and increased reload speed. But I find other glaives out there just have better origin traits. Judgment of Kel'Garath literally has Ambush. And on top of that, we have a number of artifact mods that buff Ambush. Now, if you're determined to still get this glaive, you're like, Cross, dude, I want it. I collect everything. Stop trying to deter me. All right, yes, you can get the glaive. The Adept version is literally dropping from Trials this past weekend. However, QJ actually pointed this out the other day. The drop rates for Adept weapons have dipped significantly. And that's due to the fact that Bungie nerfed Adept drops this season. Stated right here, after going flawless for the week, any win on a 7-win card, regardless of whether the card is flawless or not, will have a chance to drop the weekly Adept weapon. Now, this bonus reward was previously exclusive to the flawless pool starting on Sunday, as we used to have a flawless pool, but it will now be active all weekend and does not require you to be in a specific pool. Now, the chance of getting an Adept from a win has been slightly reduced to account for the increased duration and availability of this bonus. Let me just say, myself included, guys, the drop rates were abysmal. Post 7 wins, I did not get many Adept drops. And again, this applies to pretty much everything. But if you are looking to grind for the Adept version of this glaive, and if you're running back-to-back trial games over and over, and you're like, dude, I am just not getting this thing, keep in mind, even though Bungie said slightly reduce, it's been noticeable to us. Again, not trying to deter you guys from farming this weapon, but currently right now, if you happen to not get this weapon this season, you are not missing much. Even when future-proofing myself for potential glaive buffs, I have so many other glaives I have in my arsenal that I'm ready to use. Like, unless Bungie somehow comes in here and does some sort of change here to Voltshot specifically with Unexpected Resurgence, then we might have something cooking. But until then, I wouldn't go out of my way to get this one, guys. And as for trial rewards this season, it seems like everything is really riding on the messenger popping off. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.